President Trump signed his 29th executive order on Thursday and is expected to sign more by the end of the week. He's touted the number of executive orders as a sign of accomplishment in his first 100 days. For perspective on this, I spoke earlier to MIT historian Christopher Capozzola. Well, the president has cited his number of executive memoranda as a metric of success in his first 100 days. What role has executive action played historically in the early days of an administration?
Well, I think it's absolutely the case that executive orders and executive actions of various kinds are the easiest way for a new president to look like he or she is getting something done, and that has been the case for a century or more. I think what's also happened really just in the last 15 or 20 years is that presidents of both parties, President Bush, President Obama, President Trump, have used executive actions in order to sort of do an end round around divided Congress. So President Trump has signed a great deal of them. I think that if there had been a President Clinton coming in, she would also have signed a great deal of them. I think that's just how presidents are forced to operate in Washington today.
President Trump famously presented this contract with the American voter for his first 100 days in office. Are party nominees traditionally so explicit about their goals?
No. The parties are usually quite specific in their platforms. They can be hundreds of pages long, and candidates tend to be a little bit more general and vague because they want to please as many people as possible, and they also want to leave as many doors open. And I think in this case you had a much more specific explication of what his goals were going to be and the timetable that the president was going to use to accomplish them.
Has there been any other candidate that you can think of besides President Trump who has been explicit with goals in the way that the then candidate Trump was?
I think almost every candidate, especially in the years since Franklin Delano Roosevelt created this concept of 100 days, has been sort of very clear in promising that their first 100 days would be full of action, would be full of accomplishments. And sometimes there were signature policies that were proposed even before the candidate came into office. So yeah, I mean, people are definitely starting to rule even before they come into the White House, but maybe never with quite the point-by-point list that we saw this time.
Well, commentators have talked a lot about what President Trump has learned in his first 100 days. Is there one thing in common most presidents have learned in the beginning of their terms?
Absolutely. I think that presidents have learned that the American public wants both action and slow deliberation, and that they want sort of opposite things at the same time. They want time to discuss complicated policies that are going to affect their lives, but at the same token, they want their leaders to lead, and that's an almost impossible task for any politician. Regardless of whether they share the same party with Congress, regardless of whether there's a national crisis. It's just a difficult period, and especially for any president who's coming in who hasn't had a lot of experience in the office. There's also that learning curve. So it's a tall order for anyone.
Well, FDR set this standard for 100-day accomplishments, but he was inaugurated in March and had more time to prepare for Congress. Do you think that the shortened transition of this era has made that an impossible standard?
I think it's made it more challenging, for sure, but it's also the fact that the federal government is much bigger than it was when Franklin Roosevelt took office, and so that requires enormous amount of staffing and appointments, things that that have taken a long time in this administration, but have taken longer in 21st century administrations than they did 80 years ago.
So the sheer size of government now is very much a complicating factor.
Yeah, that requires, it just requires more than 100 days to get any administration up and running.
All right. Christopher Capozzola, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.